I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and this is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. Welcome to another Mail Call Mondays, and you guys may notice the rifle sitting in front of me. This is the Ruger Precision Rifle. This is the Gen 2 version, and it is chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor. So we finally do have one in, not because Ruger sent one to us, but because we have an awesome viewer out there who volunteered his brand new Ruger Precision Rifle for us to do a review on. So this is a viewer's rifle. Casey, thank you very much for sending this out to us. We will take good care of her, and we will get a review knocked out. Now, sitting on top of the Ruger Precision Rifle is a Nightforce ATACR 5 to 25 power. And this so far, we've just got this mounted up. We played with it a little bit, and this is an absolutely awesome looking and awesome feeling rifle scope, and I can't wait to get out and actually do some work on it. When we come back, I hope to be able to tell you guys a little bit about how I feel about this scope versus the other front runner, the 5 to 25 power Nightforce Beast. They are about in the same class. They are really designed for the same kind of application, but there are quite a few differences between the Beast and the ATAC-R. This is a first focal plane version, just like the Beast is. I know the first of the ATAC-Rs were not F1 scopes, they were second focal plane scopes, but this is a first focal plane ATAC-R. So once we get some time with it, once we run some tracking tests on it, we'll come back and we will talk about the ATAC-R as well as the Ruger Precision Rifle. Just some quick stuff over the top of it. We got it out of the box. We threw a bipod on it, mounted the ATAC-R and the Nightforce Unimount on it, and then it was really quick to set my length of pull and my comb height with these throw levers and the tension adjustment knobs on it. Really fast to get it dialed in just to where I want it, so I was really happy to see that. It's also going to be really quick to adjust back and forth if you need to go to a shorter length of pull for a certain position that you need to get into. So that's really cool. Again, this is a folding stock, and it locks up really tight. I wasn't expecting it to lock up as tight as it did, again, for the price point of this rifle, but it's a really nice mechanism, and it really locks in well. The first thing that we did once we got everything mounted up here is we grabbed a bunch of 308 magazines that I had here in the shop and proceeded to run them in the gun to see which ones would seat and lock and allow the bolt to go forward. The one that I've got in here right now is the Magpul AICS magazine. Both Magpul AICS and the standard Accuracy International AICS magazines lock in here and hold just fine. The bolt runs off of them. They feed just fine so far that we can tell without getting the rifle out and live firing it yet. So those are good to go. Interestingly enough, 5-round AICS magazines will not slide in far enough to lock. So we're not able to get 5-round AICS magazines locked in there. I'm not quite sure why. I haven't done a really close investigation on why the 5-rounders won't lock in, but the 10-rounders will. They don't appear to be bottoming out here on any of the fencing around the mag well. So I'm not real sure why the 5-rounders don't lock in. I don't think that's a really big deal because the 10-rounders don't extend beyond the bottom of the pistol grip, so it's not an interference issue. I can tell you we took a AR-10 magazine. This is an AR-10B magazine, so it is a modified M14 magazine, and these will not lock in. There's nothing to catch on them. The side magazine lock won't engage the notch for them, so don't expect to use AR-10 magazines. Those don't work. I don't have any M14 magazines sitting around here right now. I've got to go borrow one of those to see if the M14 magazines feed in them just fine. But so far, unfortunately, the 20-round AR-10 mags that I have do not work. One other thing that does not work is AW magazines, Accuracy International AW magazines. Again, they will not actually lock in, and I believe it has something to do with the feed lips on the inner portion of the receiver. The magazine just won't go up in there far enough to engage the mag catch. So far from what we've tried, 10-round AICS magazines and 10-round Magpul AICS magazines will lock in. Of course, the Magpul PMags will lock in just fine. And one interesting thing that we saw, and I didn't grab a PMag out here to show you guys, but the PMags apparently on the last round serve as a last round bolt hold open. It looks like the follower will actually prevent the bolt from going forward on the PMags. That is a pro or a con depending upon what you want to be able to do. If you want to be able to just throw another round in and slam it forward, well then that bolt hold open feature is a con, and you may want to take some PMags and do a little bit of modification to them if you're going to use them exclusively in this rifle. For me, since a PMag is a 20-round magazine, and it's very seldom that I would shoot a bolt gun stage that requires more than 20 rounds, then the bolt hold open feature is nice, because if I short load it for whatever reason, say it's a limited stage where you can only fire 10 rounds, then when I fire that last shot and go to drive the bolt forward, it's going to stop. I know the magazine's empty. I can drop it and reload. From a working standpoint, from a military sniper or a law enforcement sniper standpoint, it is easy to get in that just firing process and being able to have something that stops your bolt and stops you from closing the bolt on an empty chamber to notify you, hey, you are out of ammo, is a really nice feature. You know, it's kind of like most modern semi-automatic rifles will lock the bolt back on the last round to tell you, hey, you're done firing, you need to reload. Same thing here, it holds that bolt back so you have a physical trigger to reload your rifle. So just some neat things that I looked at. Overall, the Ruger Precision Rifle appears to be a really high quality setup. Pretty impressed with the fit and finish of the gun so far. The bolt feel, we're going to have to see how it feels when we actually start shooting some live rounds for it. It's a little looser than I like. I mean, you can see we've got a good deal of rattle here until it actually locks up. Now when it locks up solid. But the chatter as you're moving the bolt back and forth can be a little bit distracting. But again, we're working with a rifle at a specific price point. This isn't in competition with Accuracy Internationals or SACOs or any of those high-end rifle systems. This is an entry-level rifle system. The whole intent or the whole hope of this system is to get a guy that wants to buy a rig, get in and shoot a precision rifle series type match, can set this up, throw an optic on it and go. So hopefully that is what we'll see. We've got about 100 rounds of Hornady factory 140 grain ELD ammunition in that we are going to run through this for accuracy testing, and we're going to get some velocity out of it. So again, the guy that just grabs the rifle, doesn't have a chronograph or any of this stuff, can buy some Hornady 140 ELD and have a good idea of where he's going to start with. So that's the whole idea going forward, and we will get on this as soon as we're done with the Magpul Hunter stock, which we are almost done with the review on that. So look forward to that. Now let's get on to the questions. And we didn't have a whole lot of time to prep for this. There's a whole lot going on in my life outside of Mail Call Mondays. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to read the comments right off of the YouTube page. So I'm going to scroll down here real quick. And the first question is from Matthew, and this is in regards to the after action report that we posted last week on the Sniper's Hide Cup. And Matthew asked, were you running 107 Sierra Match Kings, and did you lose a lot of brass being a field match? Well, yeah, I was running 107 Match Kings in the Accuracy International AE Mark II, and actually I think I lost about 25 rounds total. So that's really not bad out of 250 rounds fired. Some of those lost rounds were just because of the tall grass or the rocks. I know I lost at least 1 or 2 in the rock pile that we were shooting off of. And some of them were just because we got to a point where you didn't want to waste any more time looking for your brass. We needed to swap shooters and get going quickly. So a little bit of lost brass, although it really wasn't too bad. I did have my brass marked. I put 2 Sharpie stripes of different colors around the brass, so it made it really quick for me to pick them up. And the real benefit about it, when you work with one squad through each of the different stages, your squad members start to remember what your brass markings are. So when you're looking for brass, you're really picking up the entire squad's brass. Once we also get into that shooting groove, very often, if the stage will allow, if it's safe to do so, then your squad members will get up close to you, and as you're firing and kicking your brass out, they'll snatch your brass up off the ground. So as soon as you come off the line, they can hand you your fired cartridges, and you can get moving a whole lot quicker. So really not that bad on lost brass. X-Ring asks, how about that SIG TacOps review? Well, we are working on it. I tried to intermix a little bit of the precision rifle content. I didn't want to get too far away from that, but we will get back to the TacOps review. The only holdup on it is I went back through our footage and realized I don't have a lot of range footage actually shooting the TacOps at the range. I've got over 1,600 rounds through it at this point. I've got a really good feel on what the gun likes, what it doesn't like, how well it functions. So we're ready to do the review as soon as I get some chance to shoot some footage of me actually shooting the TacOps out at the range. Danner Tactical asks, John, at this style of match, do you think someone would benefit from going up to, say, a 300 Win Mag with 230 Berger hybrids and a good break, or will the weight still be an issue? Well, the weight is not so much of an issue. The Accuracy International AE Mark II with that big heavy 26-inch Krieger barrel on it was a pig. There are a lot of 300 Win Mags that are a lot lighter than the rifle that I took out there. What's going to be an issue is that recoil. A 300 Win Mag shooting 230 grain Bergers is going to have some significant recoil. You put a good break on it, it's going to have some significant muzzle blast. When you spread that out over 250 rounds, that's going to contribute to a lot of shooter fatigue. So it's really going to be dependent upon what you're capable of. Now, the Sniper's Hide Cup did have a speed limit. I believe it was a 3,200 foot per second speed limit. So you couldn't exceed that. So as long as you stayed under that and stayed within those realms, if you were able to deal with the recoil, then you could most certainly have shot a 300 Win Mag. I haven't done the ballistics between the load that you're talking about and a fast 6.5 or fast 6mm, but I would bet that you're not going to gain a massive advantage with the 300 Win Mag over a fast 6.5 or fast 6mm. That's one of the reasons those guns are so popular in these games, is because you get excellent ballistics with them, but you have a minimal amount of recoil compared to the big bores. I mean, if you really wanted to, you probably could have rolled out and shot a 338 Lapua Magnum, but again, you're carrying more ammo, you're going to be exposed to more recoil, and since most of this was shot off a tripod, being able to recover from recoil quickly and spot your shot and get that information really was a great benefit. So I don't know that a 300 Win Mag would have been a massive benefit for you, even if you could deal with the repeated pounding that you would get from it. Jeff Glover asks, I'm new to precision rifle shooting, so I've always looked forward to MCM. Do you have any thoughts on various buffer spring weight and bolt carrier combos to reduce recoil? I built a 308 using the Mega Ma 10 MKM with rifle length handguard. I have a Fulton Armory Criterion Match 18.5-inch carbine length gas tube and Sentry adjustable gas block. The buffer spring and buffer weight are Fulton's carbine recommendations. The bolt carrier group is also from Fulton. They checked the headspace and they were good to go. After the build, I noticed on Mega's website that they recommend the Rubber City Armory bolt carrier, which is a lightweight carrier. Hence my question about your thoughts. Also, I think on your show about duty gear, you mentioned not liking to have your portable light up in the dark. My solution when I worked nights was to turn the portable in the holder so that the screen faced my body. If it even helps if you need to remove the portable to look at the screen. Well, Jeff, thanks for your recommendation on the portable. Unfortunately, my portable's got buttons on the front of it, so if I turned it around to face inboard, every time I sat in the car, it would mash the buttons and it would cause all kinds of problems. Did think about that, but some electrical tape kind of solves some of the LED problems, and a new radio holster may just solve the rest of them. But I appreciate the suggestion on that. Regarding your buffer weight and spring setup, really that is going to depend a whole lot on what you can do to tune it for the rifle. The heavier buffer and heavier spring is really not so much intended to reduce recoil, although the sheer mass of the carrier can reduce recoil in the overall platform very minimally. Really what it's designed to do is it's designed to work with the timing of the gun to keep the bolt closed longer and to slow the unlocking and the ejecting of the cartridge. So a lighter weight carrier, it changes the dynamics of the recoil impulse and it changes how the rifle cycles. It's not so much for recoil. If recoil mitigation is your main function, then adding weight to the overall rifle will reduce recoil, and adding a really good brake will reduce recoil. I find that if recoil reduction is really my key point that I'm after, then I go with a really good brake. So I don't really want to mess with the timing of the gun. I would rather just mess with the gases from the muzzle blast. Now, when we're actually talking about operating systems, lighter seems to be better in these big, heavy 308s to a point. You reach a point of diminishing return because lighter weight reduces that impact that you get when that bolt carrier hits the end of its travel, and then that second impact that you get when the bolt carrier slams forward. It kind of has this slide hammer effect with that big heavy bolt carrier group slapping back and forth. I think that's one of those reasons that it's more difficult to shoot a big heavy 308 as well as you can a 5.56 AR. So I kind of prefer to try to sneak onto the lighter end. I haven't tried a ultra lightweight large frame AR build. That may be something that I look at on the horizon. But when you look at, say, the JP LR7, it uses a lightweight bolt carrier group in order to minimize that slamming about, and then you use the recoil spring to tune things beyond that. Now, as I said, there's a point of diminishing returns because if you go too light, then you can run into a situation where that bolt carrier coming forward does not have enough mass to strip that top round off of your magazine. You got to remember that a 20-round stack of 308 in a magazine has got some weight to it, and that spring in the magazine has to have a pretty good amount of force to keep that round stack up there. So that top round is being held in those feed lips pretty well. So it's got to have a really good deal of inertia for the bolt carrier to strip that top round out. So if you go too light, you may run into cycling problems. But I wouldn't be afraid to experiment with some lighter weight bolt carrier groups, and you may find that you recover from shots on the rifle a whole lot quicker, that you're able to get your shots off quicker, and it's just a more enjoyable rifle to shoot with a lighter weight operating assembly. P. King's Dead asks, what reticle do you have in your Razor 5-20 power? If it's the EBR-2B Christmas tree reticle, how do you like it? Any other comments on the scope in general? I just ordered one, so curious to what I'm getting. Well, the Razor that we have does have the EBR-2B reticle in it. It's probably one of my favorite reticles in the Vortex lineup. I really like the way the reticle works. It's quick, it's got all the information that you need, and you really don't have to worry about it if you don't. It doesn't intrude upon your sight picture. Other than that, the scope is really a great overall set of features. I know it doesn't have locking turrets like some of the newer scopes, but even like the ATAC-R in front of me, there's no locking elevation turret on this ATAC-R. So again, you're not really losing anything to the Gen 1 Razor. One thing to be aware about is the turrets on it, though. They can get rolled off of your Zero while they're in the bag. That's one thing that I did notice while I was using the Razor Gen 2 on my duty rifle for work, is that occasionally I'd pull it out of the gun bag and the turret would be rolled. It's just because of that heavy knurling around the top of the turret and the fact that the Razor turrets are fairly quick to spin. So just keep your eye on that. Make sure that when you go up, part of your pre-firing checklist is to make sure that your turrets are on 0, and you'll be good to go. Overall, the glass in it is great. The controls on it are great. My Razor has the 5 mil per revs turrets, so the clicks are pretty distinct going to each one of the notches. The 10 mil per rev turrets, since the clicks are a little bit closer together, it's not quite as distinct, but is still a great feeling turret. Texas Longhorn Ranch says, "You hanging on the scope like that drives me nuts." I'm guessing he's talking about me hanging on the scope kind of like this. I will talk real quick on this, and one of the reasons I wanted to read his comment is guys get kind of wrapped around the axle sometimes about how you handle rifle scopes. There are two ways to look at this. Your rifle scope is a precision instrument. If just tiny things go wrong inside the scope, it can have a great big huge impact at 1,000 yards downrange. However, these rifle scopes should be durable enough to take a pretty good pounding. I mean, it's attached to this thing that is going to have an explosive charge set off inside of it, which is going to cause a good deal of impact to the scope itself. So just pushing down on the scope really should not cause any damage. This scope here has a 34 millimeter main tube, pretty beefy main tube. It's a pretty large chunk of aluminum, so I'm not greatly concerned with bending anything. You'll very often see competitors out on the line, when they go to pick their rifles up, they'll just grab the scope and pick it up from the scope. Now that was a huge no-no back in the day while I was in the Marine Corps. But we've since learned that the mounting systems, the scopes, everything about them is so much better built. They are really heavy duty. And even back in the day, my old Universal 10X was a stainless steel scope tube and steel rings bolted directly into the top of the receiver. So really there is not a whole lot to go wrong on that. Now if you're talking back even further than that, when you go back into Vietnam era and you're talking about these either big target scopes like the Universal 8X on Winchester M70, or you're talking about some of the more fragile, lighter weight hunting scopes, then yeah, it would have been a bad idea just to grab that scope and swing the rifle around by the scope. But on these guys, they can take a great pounding. I've knocked rifles over, kicked them across the concrete accidentally. If you do this for any amount of time, at some point your scope is going to take a good impact, and you really get a chance to see how well they work. With quality scopes like Vortex, Nightforce, the higher end Leupold scopes, Collis, US Optics, those kind of scopes out there, if they take a hit, you're generally going to be just fine. So really not that big of a deal. It does still bug some people when they see me leaning on it, but really I'm just resting my arm on here. I'm not actually pushing my body weight on the scope. So don't worry, the gear can handle it. And if your scope's going to fail, I would rather find out it's going to fail because I'm leaning on it like this than have it fail at a critical moment out in the field. Rancor 788 asks, hog saddle versus Caldwell Field Pod. Well, I haven't actually got a chance to try the Caldwell Field Pod yet. I may look into getting one and try it out, but the really nice thing about the hog saddle is you can lock your rifle into it and you can let go of the rifle if you need to. So if you're doing something like some of the stages at the Sniper's Hide Cup where I was jumping from rifle to rangefinder and back to rifle, there was no concern about the rifle falling out of the cradle or falling out of the hog saddle. It was locked in, it wasn't going anywhere. Some of the shooting stick combos or some of the lighter weight tripods, you don't really want to totally take your hands off the rifle. I've even got some lighter weight tripod combos that I've tried to use with the hog saddle, and if you don't have the rifle balanced out just perfectly, when you let go, it will try to pull the whole tripod over. So sometimes a little bit heavier weight setup like the hog saddle works better. But I'm always looking for something that makes things easier, makes things quicker to move about in the field. So I may take a look at the Caldwell Field Pod and we'll see how that works. Stephen B asks, how's the tracking on that scope? Again, asking about the Razor 5-20 power in the last video. And the tracking is absolutely perfect on it. I haven't been able to notice any tracking shift at all. And the testament to how well that scope tracks is when I shot that rig at 1,000+ yards on the first stage of the match, all I was going off of was ballistic data and dialed it in. I hadn't actually shot and recorded the data for that round at that range at any point in time before. So the scope tracked absolutely perfectly. It gave me exactly what the data read on the Kestrel. And so with the combination of getting the velocity off the magneto speed, plugging that into the Kestrel, getting the firing solution from the Kestrel, and dialing that into the scope, it all worked flawlessly. So the tracking on the Razor is as good as I can ask for. It's as good as I can measure with field instruments. So unfortunately we don't have a computerized optical testing rig where we can put the scope in and actually test the tracking. But as far as I can see, the tracking on the Razor is absolutely good to go. And that's all we have for this Mail Call Mondays. If you guys have a question that you'd like to see answered on the next Mail Call Mondays, please leave it in the comments section below. If you got questions about anything, you can leave it in the comments section below or send it to us on Facebook or Twitter. And until next time, get out and shoot.